Well, today I guess I was going to start on the suspension, but first thing I got to do before I go ahead and take the body off of it is just set my heights and get the body leveled off. I actually took the measurements from the body line down to the top of the body edge, both sides, and trying to get it close. I mean, it doesn't have to be perfect, but you know, if you're going to follow behind it, that's something that you might notice. Get these measurements right. I ended up, I had to shim the bottom of this bracket right here, or this mount, whatever you want to call it, so that the distance from here to the top of this brand new piece of angle line is the same. You know, basically something's a little bit out of alignment as far as the height of the chassis, or it's probably more than anything, it's the cab. When I welded the floor in the cab, it moved it around, it changed some things, so nothing's going to be perfect. We're not doing this on a chassis jig or anything, so this is kind of backyard built. It is what it is. So, so I ended up having to put a little shim in there. No big deal. But I want to get the body leveled up, and basically I'm not going to mount it, but I'm going to get all the holes marked out where it's going to be. The bullet hole that's going to stay. I did get the cab finished up as far as the cut in the cab, cleaned that up, finished welding it on the inside, same thing on the other side. This door is set inside now, got it adjusted, so it works pretty good. So moving on to the rear suspension, but I figured before I take the body off I'd get this straightened out first. So. Well, here's a quick shot of the beginning of my rear suspension. I started to record a little bit more, but my batteries died, so there's a bracket down there mounted on the U-bolts. That's how I'm going to mount that. And this top piece, this round stock, is it's a jack handle from an old floor jack. I actually used some other pieces of the floor jack in the build too. It's some pretty nice thick steel, so, and that round jack handle right there is really thick. Thicker than most round tube that you would buy. So anyway, it should be strong enough. There's my coilover. I don't have a spring in it, as you can see. It's just a piece of pipe to take up the space of a spring. I just don't happen to have any. So, but there's the beginning of it. And the mount on the bottom is, like I say, it's just a piece of angle iron. I'm going to go ahead and take a piece of pipe like you know, this, and this is where I'm going to run my bolts through. I'll probably be just fine with it. That coilover actually pivots. There's a Heim bearing on the inside of the shock there. It pivots on that. That's going to mount back in there. I'm going to go ahead and take one of these right here and cut it down to size, and probably end up welding it on top of that. I got to cut that bracket down. This will come in. The bolt will go in there. That'll be that. They set this up pretty much for like a 10-inch spring, because that's a pretty common spring, and I'm probably going to end up running like 100-pound springs. I don't know yet, but we'll find out after we get it all together. It's kind of a go, you know, go with the flow and find out what works afterwards. We'll have to bounce it around a bit, experiment with a few springs. Luckily, I have a few buddies that are oval racing, and I could probably grab a few different rates to try them until I find the right ones before I have to go and actually buy any. So, but that's a start on the suspension anyway. Well, there's my lower coilover brackets. These are going to bolt right onto the U-bolts. Right onto the U-bolts, onto the bottom chair, one on each side. And of course, I'm going to use this jack handle cross member for the top mount. So I'm going to go ahead and bolt them things in and get an idea of what this is going to look like. Maybe cut the back of the leaves off. Once the coilovers are in place and my top link is in place. I'm gonna just cut the back of these leaf springs right off once they're all clamped down and the U-bolts are all tight. They will actually act as kind of a panhard bar. This way I can, I'll use the front of the leaves for a locating rod basically, and I'm going to put a top link on top of the rear end housing up to the frame, which will control the wrap, because I'm going to have coilovers back here, one on each side, for the actual suspension, spring and shock. So that should pretty much tie it all up and take care of it. So we'll find out in a few minutes. Well, there is the coilover setup. They're all mounted. It's sitting on its own. It's actually, the car is jacked up on the rear end, and you know, it's on its own suspension. Obviously, those exhaust pipe springs don't have any spring action, but you know, gives you an idea of the gist of all of it. And that's going to be it. You know, I'm going to put a top link on it, which is going to sit on top of the rear end housing, and you know, go up to the front of the cross member up there behind the cab. But this is pretty much it. Once everything is all tightened up, the U-bolts are all tightened up, socked down, front's all tightened up, everything's all you know, all torqued down real well, nothing's going to move, not with this anyway. And that should be that. There's my my brackets. That's actually the leftover piece of iron that I made it out of. Something else, some of you guys that are, you know, you got a lot of junk kicking around. These right here, these bushings are actually made from a steering shaft. Steering shaft is a pretty good bushing maker. It's really thick wall, and it's 1/2 inch in the center. Most of them are anyway. Pretty much any that I've come across are a 1/2 inch inside dimension. So they make real good mounts for shocks or whatever you might be mounting onto a piece of tubing or square tube or whatever the case may be. And you can see them down here too. Same situation. The whole steering shaft. So when you're cutting up junk or whatever, save it. Works good for that. But that's about it for the suspension anyway.